I'm here today with Cynthia Cross. Cynthia is Director of Sales at Cox Business Kansas. Cynthia, it's wonderful to have you here. We have been enjoying working with Cox as a sponsor of the podcast, and I'm so excited to meet you and hear a little about your sales journey.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I love representing Cox anytime I can, and I love talking about my journey. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
That's great. So going back to when you got out of college, did you think that you would be in sales or did you have other aspirations for what you wanted to do when you grew up?
No, and what's crazy is if you would have told me I'm aging myself, but 30 years ago, you're going to have a career in sales, I would have told you were crazy. But even going into college, I loved math. I was going to be an accountant. And second semester college, I got a meeting request from my advisor and my accounting professor, and I went in and my accounting professor told me, "Cynthia, I think you're in the wrong major." And I was 19. I was completely offended because I had all the answers. And I was like, "What are you talking about? I got an A in class last semester." This is not about the grades. "You got the grades, math, numbers." "You talk in my class all the time." He said, "You are the most social person. You would hate that career." "You've got to be able to be around people. You've got to be able to socialize, network." And looking back, I'm like, man, he had such an impact on the trajectory of my life because I was headed down the path of being an accountant. And so then I went into marketing. Never really thrived in anything in college. Besides the social network, I was benefit side. But then I got out of college and I had done a couple internships in marketing and I was just like, it's fine. But it wasn't, like, really for me, and then I moved the day after college graduation. I grew up in Iowa.
Yeah.
My sister had attended my college graduation, and she lived in Wichita at that time, so I was like, "There's my free ride. Let's get out of here. I don't like cold weather." So I came down to Wichita with literally nothing. Like, I had no car, I'm nothing, and just started looking for jobs, just, like, applying mass applications, and I just started getting to know people, and my sister was friends with a gal that was a sales manager at the daily newspaper here in Wichita, and I got to know her, and in talking, realized there was an opening, and so I applied, and the lifelong lesson of it isn't always about what you know, but who you know.
Yeah.
My first job, I got in I got an interview because of who I knew, and honestly, Lori, my whole career has been about who I have known to take me to the next step and the next step, and it's a long-winded answer to your question, but no, I didn't know I would be in sales, and now I look and I'm like, there is nothing I would love to be in more than this field.
Yeah.
I appreciate my professor even more, having
Yeah.
willingness to have that hard conversation way back then, so
That is wonderful to hear. What a great story. And I still, I talk to young women that are in high school or college and they've never heard of sales as a profession. They've heard of retail. Have you found that kind of interesting? It's like the secret that the guys they've had down pretty good all these years, and we have more and more women getting into sales, which is great, but it still surprises me that so many women have not heard about the fact that there's business to business sales going on and that it can be a very lucrative and flexible career.
yeah, and I think to your point, Lori, I think in general, sales just has such a bad vibe when you say, "Oh, I'm gonna go into sales." People just they immediately have this negative connotation, even with my kids, and they see how much I enjoy my job. One of them has a personality like me, and I'm always telling her she loves to travel. I'm like, "You're a senior in college, like, sales could be." "I don't wanna do sales." And I'm like, it just has such a negative connotation at times, and what I love is we do a lot of work with Kansas State University, and they actually have and I know many universities now actually have sales majors,
Yeah.
not just certificates. They actually have majors and minors, which is amazing. So I really think in the next few years, we'll see that really changing because it's a legit major now, And then you combine it's a major plus they can come out making a substantial income out of college. So I think we'll see that change, but I yes, to your question, I am always surprised that there aren't more people excited. But the other thing you have to remember is sales isn't for everybody because a lot of the pay is tied to commission. And if you're not a risk taker and that doesn't motivate you, then it is not for you. Because when we interview people, like one of the things that I'll ask is, what hobbies do you enjoy outside of work? And if they don't bring up a sport,
Yeah.
very telling to me that this could be a problem for them because if you aren't competitive in nature and willing to kind of risk it, they're not going to enjoy having a chunk of their paycheck tied to a commission structure. So I think the pay is something that shies people away also, especially the older they get and the farther they get into their career. It is hard to step back into that commission structure.
Uh,
I out of college right into it. I know nothing else.
yeah.
So that's a big component of people going into that field also.
Yeah, I started on straight commission. I had a draw,
Yep.
and if I didn't make some sales within, I think it was 60 days, I'm not sure. And I
Yep.
was a single mom, but you know what? I made minimum wage at the job I came from, and I thought, "How much worse could it get?"
Exactly. Right.
And that was as a teacher, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a teacher when I grew up, but I ended up getting into sales to support my family, and that was a game changer career.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah,
Ag-
it's so amazing. So, what do you say to people when they are not sure about sales? Do you ask about if they're competitive? That's a really good thing. Now, we talk a lot about the will to be successful. If you don't have the will, it doesn't really matter what skills that you have.
Yep. Yeah, we talk about that a lot as a leadership team of we want to try to add people that have the will. I can't teach good integrity, drive, passion, independence. I can't teach that. I can teach you a product all day long, but I can't teach you those things that come with the will. So we really like hone in on what motivates you? Why do you want this job? And if people say, I like taking care of people, sales probably isn't the job for them because while we do get a reward of that and seeing our customers satisfied and helping them get their business to the next step, that absolutely is part of our jobs. But the care, the customer service side of it, that's not really a sales thing, and so really honing in on understanding and yes, there are some salespeople that love to take care of the customer and they're super successful at sales, but that's not really the norm. Normally, super successful salespeople are driven by competition and getting themselves to the next step and things like that, and so just really trying to hone in on the interview process about what drives people, why are they thinking this is the job for them, and really talking to them about, listen, a happy employee is going to be so much more successful, stick around versus an employee that's doing a job they don't enjoy. And so I really take seriously like making sure we have a good fit with the role and the candidate. And there's been so many times, Lori, that I'm like, you know what? I think you would be a great addition to the team, but I don't think this is the right role for you. And here's why. Could I keep your resume because I think you would be a good fit if I have this type of role open? And I have 2 people on our team right now that happened with, and they were both like, "I thought you were blowing smoke, when you said that," because 'cause I'm like, "Okay, this is just her way of not telling me she didn't want me." And I was like, "No, legit, like, I want people in the right job because if they're happy, they're gonna be engaged, they're gonna be excited, they're gonna have longer tenure, and they're gonna make a lot of money, and it's just a full circle thing, so
Yeah.
making sure fit is there is so critical.
Yeah, that's really important. When you came to Cox, were you in leadership or did you go in a sales role and then get promoted up because you've been promoted throughout
Yes.
the system, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I started as an enterprise sales rep,
Mm.
and I actually had no desire when I came in thinking I was like, "I'm just gonna rock it." I like to be on my own, nobody don't have to worry about anybody else. And then the sales manager role came open probably 2 years into my career at Cox, and I went for it and didn't even get an interview. And, I mean, if you think back, it was very different in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
It wasn't the environment we have now, and so I didn't get an interview, and I was told, "You don't have any management experience," which at that point was true, and I wasn't told was the true story that he already had somebody identified that he wanted, and I was like, "Just tell me that, like, literally tell me." But I did appreciate it after the fact because it just motivated me. I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna prove you wrong." And so I went out and got involved with the junior league
Ah,
and started leading everything. So for the next 2 years, any committee, anything, I led. And then the job came open again, and different leader that I was would be reporting to, but the boss's boss was still the same. And in the interview, he's, "Yeah, but you still don't have any management experience." And I was like, "Actually, if you turn my resume over, I have a lot of leadership experience," which in my mind, management and leadership, they're not the same. But I was like, "I've been leading for the last 2 years, and I've been leading volunteers, which have no reason to do what I ask them to do." So it's even more difficult. So actually, no, I do have experience. And so it was just very rewarding to feel like I really earned that spot
yeah.
to get that sales leader role.
That it's interesting because you didn't do it internally, you did it through volunteering,
Yeah.
working through a local nonprofit, which is such a great strategy. I've really never heard anyone talk about it that way. But what a way to go and gain the skills. I've run into a lot of managers who say you don't have this or you don't have that. And but they never often they often don't tell you how to get those things that are missing. I
Right.
don't know. So that was a big win for you. That was really exciting. And then you just rose from there, right? Because you're a director level now.
Yeah, and I did that for 9 years, and I believe wholeheartedly, Lori, that your development is your responsibility, and yes, you need advocates along the way, and you need people that are willing to help you, but it is really a personal responsibility to do that, and I tell people a lot that the worst time to share your desires and ambitions is when a job opens. You should have been doing the hard work prior, like your boss's boss, even higher up. They need to hear from you what your goals and ambitions are, and then it gives you time to learn the perception because their perception is your reality. And going into an interview process, if you don't realize what they're thinking and have had time to correct it, you haven't put yourself in a situation of being the no-brainer candidate. And so I push people a lot and I push myself a lot of, okay, I want more responsibility. It's not about a title. It's never been about a title for me, but I want to make a greater impact. I want more responsibility. So, what do you see as things I should work on to get to that next level? And then coming full circle of doing some work and then meeting with them again and saying, okay, when we met last time, I really appreciated your feedback. Here's what you shared. Here's the things I've been doing to work on, and here's how I feel like I've gotten better at it. And then they're like vested in your development. They're like, okay, she's listening, she gets it. People say feedback's a gift. And I'm like, I'm at a point now where true, but you have to be able to step back,
Yeah.
realize what matters to you, and understand that you may not ever be able to improve every gap you have, but you can absolutely improve yourself a little bit in every area and then partner with people that are good at what you aren't good at. Because I believe if you can lead no matter what you're leading,
Mhm.
and then you surround yourself with people that are good at what I'm not super strong at. And so that's how you create a really strong team. So I just really focus on making sure everyone knows my ambitions, and then continually working on developing myself. Like, the biggest fear factor for me is if in a month I am in the same position developmentally
Mm.
as I am today, because, man, life is short and I wanna be as good as I can, and if I focus on what I can do to get better, then I don't have time to focus on all this noise and drama and stuff around me.
Yeah. So the lifelong learner mentality, right? Growth mindset.
Yep, that's right.
That's great. I like your LinkedIn background says if serving is below you, leadership is beyond you.
That's
Tell,
true.
tell us a little bit about what that means to you.
When I you go through your career and you get exposed to leadership styles that you really grow in, and you get people say, "Tell me about the worst leader you had." And I'm like, "I don't think there's a bad leader. I think everybody teaches you something."
Yeah.
And for me, it's always been about how did they make me feel and who made me feel most engaged because that's the leader I want to be. And so for me, it's all about my team needs to fully understand that A, I care about them. I am going to hold them accountable, even though I care about them. But at the end of the day, I will do exactly the task I'm asking them to do. I will go fight their battles. My only requirement is make sure I'm armed with the proper information. Don't send me to battle with a pistol if somebody's coming with a sword. So arm me with the right data and I will go battle for you. And I just think that's really in my mind of if you can't make your team feel like you are working for them, then you shouldn't be in a leadership role because leadership isn't about it's not about me. It's about watching my team advance, grow. Nothing more rewarding than watching people develop and promote themselves and move into roles that they did not believe they were capable of. I have 2 examples of people that I knew they had it in them and they didn't see it, and she started as a sales rep, literally got written up her first year, and I'm like, "Listen, you are capable." And she's, "Yeah, I'm just not interested, and not interested." Now, long story short, she went from a mid-market rep to an enterprise rep to an account manager, then became a sales manager, then transferred to another department down in Florida, and now she's a director down there, and I'm like, "I told you, I saw it in you." So those for me, like, that's when you reference my background on LinkedIn, that's what that means is doing what you can to help others be as successful as they can and believing in them when they don't believe in themselves.
Oh, wow. That's great. And Cox Business is hiring,
Yes, always.
looking for more sales professionals. Yeah.
Yeah, we one of the most important things we can do is always have a bench because we would love to have the same team a year from now that we have today because churn is hard and it's expensive and all the things. Customers are impacted, but that's just not life. So we constantly will be dealing with churn for multiple reasons, but we are always looking to have a strong bench. So if we have an opening, those people that we've identified, they're like their skills, they would be great. Then we can follow back up and say, okay, when we talked a few months ago, well, we have a spot. We think you'd be a good fit. But yes, we're always looking. We're always hiring. We actually do have an open role right now too, but always looking for strong people to add to our bench.
That's good. And we share those links. If anyone has trouble finding them, they can reach out to me directly and I'll be happy to help them. And just wondering, final thoughts, any book that you've read that's really made a difference for you? Or I don't know, how do you learn other than going and volunteering and non your local nonprofits, which sounds like another great way to learn?
I am a big podcast and Audible book listener. Brene Brown, I don't think she's written anything that hasn't taken me to the next step. Radical Candor was fantastic book if you're in sales. And then the one that has just really nailed it for me lately is Mel Robbins, her podcast and then her book, Let Them.
Yeah.
Like no matter how strong we are and how we try to stay in our lane, the minute there's something that just makes you feel like you don't belong or you're not good enough, those thoughts just creep into our head and just being able to think through they don't impact the value of me and that whole let them theory. But
Yeah.
then circles back with it of let me. So let them, but then let me. It goes back to that, what can I do to
Yeah.
impact how I feel and, what I do with my life. So big fan of that book. Have actually read it, listened to it twice now in the last couple months. So
Yeah, really good for sales professionals too.
yeah.
Absolutely. You can only focus on the things you can control. You can do something about yourself. Yeah. That's so great. Cynthia Cross, it's just been a pleasure to have you here. She's Director of Sales, Cox Business, Kansas, and we will promote opportunities for Cox Business and we'll continue to do that. It's just been a pleasure and I wish you continued success. Best of luck to you.
Thanks, Lori. I really do appreciate you having me and appreciate you partnering with Cox.
Thank you.
Thanks.